Welcome to your next step up the self-publishing mountain.
I'm Matilda Swift, author of quintessentially British cozy mysteries.
And I'm Samantha Cummings, author of young adult books about magic, myths and monsters.
I've written the books,
Changed their covers,
tweaked their blurbs,
tried tools from a dozen ads courses.
and I'm still not seeing success.
Now, we're working together to plot and plan our way from barely making ends meet to pulling in a living wage.
Join us on our journey where we'll be mastering the pen to snag that paycheck.
Hello and welcome to Pen to Paycheck Authors Podcast. I'm Matilda Swift, here with my co-host Samantha Cummings, and we're here to write our way to financial success. We're two indie authors with over 2 dozen books between us, and still a long way to go towards the quit the day job dream. If that sounds familiar, listen along for our Mastery Through Missteps journey. Each week we cover a topic to help along the way. This week we're continuing our craft focus and doing a live critique. First, what are your wins and whinges of the week?
Well, I have had a very successful weekend when it comes to writing. So I clocked in our co-working session yesterday. My whinge would have been, I'm so far behind in the book that I'm writing. But after yesterday, I've realised I'm actually not that far behind at all. So yesterday I did 5,000 words in our co-working session.
Which is 3 hours.
Yeah, 5,000 words in 3
chat
hours.
in bits of it.
We do chat. And I basically write about 900-ish words every 25 minutes, which is like the sprints that we do. And I really found my footing. Like I really wasn't sure where I was up to, because I'm always a bit like iffy on the end of a book. Like I don't know how long the end's going to take to write. I don't know how many words I've got in me, because I don't plan word count per like act or anything. I just feel it out, and then it all gets edited into the right kind of way. So I finally wrote almost up to the end, and I'm feeling so much better. I was so stressed last week, and I just had a crazy stressful week at work, and just like everything felt like it was getting too much. It just was, and I was also had like a little bout of illness last week. Yesterday made me feel so much better. I have also just surpassed 100 followers on Substack, which feels very fun. I restarted my Substack the start of this month. Maybe I've been on it for a month now, and just sharing like little bits on writing process and just life, because I love blogging, and I thought I'll just go back to blogging for a bit. And it's just a really nice social media space to be in. So that's feeling very good. I'm feeling like I'm finding good people. I've already made some good connections, and I'm in a WhatsApp group with some people already.
It's exciting.
Already. I know, like a little WhatsApp group. I've been invited to another like author thing. It's fun. Going great. Feeling good. How about you?
I was going to say we'll have to add your Substack link to our show notes to the social section if you want to look at it.
Yes,
it's author focused, so it's just about like your feelings and thoughts about the author journey, which are lovely to read. I really like the mix of short and long on Substack. Like you get little notes that are just like, here's my sort of threads length update on how I'm feeling today, and then you get to do longer blogs, which it's a nice mix. My wins and wins of the week, I've had the most social week, really. I was talking to someone at the beginning this week, and they were like, "Oh, what are you doing this week?" I was like, "Nothing, not much this week." And then I just done loads. I had a friend come visit and stay with me, which was lovely. I felt like a real little break. And then my brother and sister-in-law and my nephew came for the day as well today. So yeah, I feel like I've not achieved a huge amount. I got a lot of little bits of admin done, which was good. And I've started planning my prequel novella, and it feels quite nice to do it slowly. So like I've just been free writing some ideas every day, and that's all I need to do. Right, I'm not trying to be like go dive straight into planning all the structure, because I really enjoyed last time when I was planning the novel, just letting lots of little ideas come to me and get excited about those, and that felt like it made a much richer book than trying to just like sit at a blank page and plan it. But I do next week need to start getting some planning down, because that was on my I've made a schedule now. So I've made a schedule for my releases. So that's on my schedule for this month, so that I am ready to write it on our retreat next month, and also plan another book next month. So yeah, I feel like everything's going well writing wise. And do I have any other wins or whinges? No, not really. I just feel a little bit like I'm running out of time life wise, and I don't really know why. And I'm also just feeling really tired. I think it's like seasons feel like they're changing. I'm feeling like I need a lot of sleep, and I'm just having to live with that. So
Yeah, season
generally
changing
good.
affects me quite dramatically. I
Yeah.
have days where I think like, oh, I love it, and then I look outside and it's a bit dark, and I go outside and it's cold, and I think I'm not ready. Like my body is just in a constant state of like loving things and hating things within a
Yeah.
breath of each other.
I had
It's
like when my
stressful.
friend was here, like I had all my candles lit. So I was like, oh, it's so nice and cozy. I have like a lot of candles in my living room area, and that was nice. But also like it's August.
Yeah, and it was really hot
It's
today as
crazy.
well. So
It's
did you
cold in my
have?
house.
Oh, is
Yeah,
it?
it was
Oh,
sunny, but it's not hot.
I've been basically sunbathing all day. I feel like I've got a bit of colour in my cheeks. So I've had a very sunny day. Okay, so let's get into the topic of the week. So I
Mhm.
feel like we could talk around this. We are looking at each other's books and some we have learned from. What sort of things are we going to be focusing on today?
So I think what's interesting is like we really haven't pinned this episode down until quite late in the game. And like often
Hmm.
we have really clear idea what we're doing and we make a note ages in advance. And we knew we wanted to do something critique wise, but I think we wanted to leave it quite open as like, what would that actually look like? Why are we doing it? What we're doing? What we're going to send? Um, and that has been quite useful actually, just to kind of keep it open in my mind. And what
Hmm.
I found, so we said he did like the openings of something we've written. I think partly it's useful just for us to do a critique on the podcast because we have been in critique groups before. I think people who haven't aren't really sure what sort of things people talk about in a critique group, so we do that. But also just a way for like for us to focus in on what we've been thinking about recently and talking about recently in regards to craft. And then what I found really interesting was like when I was picking books to send to you, so we had to pick 3 books each you wanted to talk about the openings of, which I'll tell you what they are in a minute, so we can and I'll put them in the show notes so you can look at them as well if you want. Um, but we had to pick 3 books, and I found myself thinking like, what criteria am I using? What am I picking them around? Um, and because I know I'm really thinking about character at the moment, I wanted to find 3 books that were focused on character. And I was like, what books have I read that were really like the character? I was like, sort of none. Like I'm not somebody who's really reading for character. I read for the whole experience. And it might be that I really like a character, but like, there's none where I think, oh, I'd love to be back with that character. Even in a recurring series, it doesn't necessarily feel like the character I'm looking to return to. I'm looking to return to like the feeling of the book and the experience of reading the book. So that was interesting that I had to really think about it to look for a book to suggest. And then when I thought of books where I thought they were a good example of something that I liked, or that I remembered well, and that I thought would be relevant to what we're talking about in terms of the book opening I've sent you. They were actually all quite different to my writing style. They were all very, very voicey and they were mostly in the first person. So I was like, oh, that's not helpful. Um, and I wanted to pick a wider variety of books. So I picked ones that had something in common with what I've sent you, in terms of my book opening. And also I've made it as only one book in first person, and there there's one that's quite close and one that's quite far in terms of writing style. Um, so yeah, so that's what I picked. What were you thinking about when you were kind of planning what to send?
I when I'm reading books and like enjoying them, I guess I'm the same. I do like characters, but I don't particularly think about the character as the draw.
Hmm.
It's always things like how quickly and probably this is I think that all of the things that I've picked are very much rooted in my my own worries about or my insecurities about writing. Like that I think I've
Uh-huh.
accidentally therapied myself. So I've picked books where one of them is just has like an introduction, like the first part of the book where you're instantly in the story, which is something that I always struggle with. I'm always a like kind of a very long-winded way to introduce a story. So one of them is very much this is the situation, no no faffing around anything. It's just like, this is where we are, deal with it. And and it's a book that I'm reading at the moment. And I thought, when I first started reading it, I was just immediately like, oh, this is how you start a book. So that's why I brought that one. One of the other ones that I picked is one that I read a while ago, and it has always stuck with me because the writing is very lyrical and just so flowy and kind of sweeps you into a story, which again is something that is very aspirational writing for me, and it seems really smart, like somebody who's very intelligent has written it. And I always think that I am a dum-dum and I couldn't possibly write anything as beautiful. So, and then the third book that I brought, I picked because, and I don't want to be mean, and I didn't pick this to be mean, but I picked a book that I had been really, really looking forward to reading, and everybody had really hyped it up. And when I started to read it, I couldn't really grasp like what people were seeing in it, because the writing style doesn't match the genre. So I kind of have picked, and that book is kind of I hope I don't write like this therapy book. So I've picked books where I really feel like big parts of me are lodged in them.
Okay, that is useful to think about. Okay, so I'm just going to read off the list of books that we're looking at today, and I'll also put in the show notes. So my three books are The Beekeeper's Apprentice by Laurie R. King, which is the beginning of the Mary Russell series. Terry Pratchett's Guards, which is a Discworld novel, but it's the beginning of like a little subset of novels in that series. And Bookshops and Bone Dust by Travis Baldree, which is actually the second book in the Legends of Lathyia series, but it's in fact a prequel. And I think I prefer it to Legend of Lattes, so I picked those three. And then Sam's three books are R.F. Kuang's Catabasis, V.E. Schwab's The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, which is one of their both initial authors, and Runix's Gothicana. So what we could start by doing, so we're only going to read the beginning of these books, so everything you can get on the Amazon sample, and almost all the books we're only going to start from chapter 1. So often they've got like some sort of preamble text. So for example, The Beekeeper's Apprentice, the conceit is that the author Laurie King was sent a trunk full of manuscripts from the real Mary Russell, because it's set in I think she's meant to be a relative of Mary Russell's. And it's set in the world of Sherlock Holmes, but when Sherlock Holmes is a very old man. So there's like several prequels kind of explaining this conceit. But we're going to start chapter 1. The only book we're not starting at chapter 1, we're including some text before that, is Gothicana, where we're looking at starting from the second section, which is called A Few Years Later by Corvina. So skip the first thing where it all began by Vad. A Few Years Later is what we're starting at. And we're only going to look at the first few pages, and we're only going to just bring up something where, as kind of critical readers, so reading as authors, we are noticing something good, bad, useful, noteworthy, whatever it is, but just something that we think this is how we are reading. And often we look at books together, so we kind of just wanted to give some insight into when we're looking at books together, this is the sort of thing that we look at and how we talk about it. So should we do one book each? Yes. Do you have one you want to start with?
I will start with a Catabasis, and I don't know if that's actually how you pronounce it. So
me either. That's what I'm just going to pick. I don't know how you want to say it.
I remember seeing when R.F. Kuang was first talking about this and doing all the promo, she was calling it Catabasis, and then I remember she changed her pronunciation partway through press, because I'm assuming that somebody corrected her. And
I know, I'm sure I've seen her say, I don't know how you say lots of words, I learned them from reading, so it doesn't matter, say what you like.
Yeah.
So I've heard people say Catabasis, I'm going to say Catabasis.
Yeah, Catabasis, I think. So are you happy with me to try and read the first couple of paragraphs?
Yeah.
Okay. And I'm only going to read the first couple of paragraphs because I feel like this is the thing that that pulled me in. And I think that the whole first 10% of this book that you would get on the sample is worth reading, but I'm terrible at reading out loud, so I'm just going to go straight from. I'm not going to read the quote at the start. So, Cambridge, Michaelmas term, October. The wind bit, the sun hid, and on the first day of class, when she ought to have been lecturing undergraduates about the dangers of using the Cartenison severance spell to revise without pee breaks, Alice Law set out to rescue her advisor's soul from the 8 courts of hell. It was a terrible, gruesome accident that killed Professor Jacob Grimes, and from a certain point of view it was her fault. And so for reasons of both moral obligation and self-interest, for without Professor Grimes she had no committee chair, and without a committee chair she could not defend her dissertation, graduate, or apply successfully for a tenure-track job in analytic magic, Alice found it necessary to beg for his life back from King Yama the Merciful, ruler of the underworld. I could continue,
So good.
but I read that and immediately stopped reading the book when I first picked this up, because I thought it was almost like a shock reaction of I'm just instantly going that's it. we're just there. And I thought that was such a fun and you've been told the whole story in 2 paragraphs. The whole premise is set up in the first 2 paragraphs. You know who she is, what she's supposed to be doing, what she is doing instead. You know, the mission. You know the danger that she's going to confront. And also, you can tell that she's a morally grey character because she's not doing it for the good of anybody but her own self-interest. And I immediately, when I read that, thought that is the best opening of a book I might have ever read.
Yeah. I think what I was really struck by was that there's such specificity in this that even though it absolutely makes no sense, right? I have been in Cambridge during Michaelmas term in October when it has been very sunny and when it's been very windy and there's sun and the first day of class. And there's undergraduate classes where that I was like, oh, I've been there, right? I know exactly what's happening. And then she's talking about instantly talking about magic.
Yes.
And then instantly talking about rescuing someone's soul from hell. And there's no change in tone for those things. They're just these are all equally factual things.
Yes.
And the level of control of the language is really interesting. It was a terrible, gruesome accident. That sounds oddly hyperbolic for such a flat tone.
Yes.
And so she really varies the language that she's using as a way to make things feel quite flexible in terms of what world we're in, what level of normality we're in.
And I also think
it feels so well controlled.
Yeah, and it softens the character because I think setting things in things like Cambridge, and you're talking about somebody who is defending their dissertation and stuff. So you already think that they are this. In my mind, it's oh wow, this is a really smart person, and the character is a very smart character. But things like saying it was terribly gruesome, it softens the language to a point where I'm oh, it's she could use a lot more. I don't know, this is going to sound stupid because this is how the words my brain comes up with, smarter word choices in some places where she uses kind of terrible gruesome. It's goosebumps. It's
she could use more academic language.
Yes, thank you. My brain doesn't think
she
of
does
words.
do sometimes. Right, she talks about Cartesian severance spell, right? So that's a mix of real academic language. Cartesian is a language, a word you would use in normal academics. But then she talks about it, pee breaks, right? It's there's such a mix of high and low language that's done on purpose here that tells you so much about who Alice Law is. And again, she's got a very non-magic-y name. I really like it. I love the mix of high and low here. And the specificity is really the thing that makes you buy into it, because you don't feel oh, I'm just wandering through someone's imaginary world. I'm I'm in real Cambridge with real magic.
Yeah. And it carries on, and for the rest of the first chapter, it is all it really goes into a lot of detail of the study of tartarology and people going to hell and all of the people who have been to hell in the past, like literary figures, and it's talked about as though those are true academic research papers that they study.
But they're just like fiction in the real world.
And it's
like,
fiction,
we were thinking fiction.
So like Orpheus's notes, T.S. Eliot's Wasteland, Dante's descriptions of, of like the 7 layers of hell and everything, and it's all just so perfectly, like a great mix of reality and fiction. And I'm only like 3 chapters in, and I'm taking it so slow because it feels like such a nice, it's just such nice writing, and I just want to take my time to just not blast through it. It's like just to read it and try and go at a nice pace.
Yeah. And I think what I found interesting was, like, I read this just after I read the sample that you sent me. And another one of the samples you sent me did another thing where they're both incredibly specific. And in the book, your book, there were a couple of times when I was like, I don't know where we are. And I think that was interesting, is like, and obviously what you said is like a very first draft, but like, I think what's interesting is that you're really latching on to works that are very specific from line 1. Like, this is the month we're in, this is the place we are, this is, and like October and Michaelmas term are fairly redundant. Like, Michaelmas term lasts like October, November, right? But like, she's trying to be very specific to show you a certain level of control.
Yes.
And I think it's useful to note like what you're picking and why you're like wanting to find things from those words. I think what also really stood out for me is, like, having read a few pages on from this, it's not super voicey the first couple of paragraphs, but we get and then the character feels like more and more unhinged the more you progress through the chapter. And you just get little hints of it here, where she's like, something where she talks about like, from a certain point of view, it was her fault, talking about killing her professor. Which just like, that's like a little bit, I'm questioning that, but I quickly read past that. But she just gets more and more like that, and I think I really like that in it, in that I'm always trying to capture someone right from the beginning, and I think this, like, the control that she has allows her to slightly more slowly unfurl it. So I really like that example.
Would you like to? Do you want me to go through all of mine and then we go to yours? We haven't really discussed. We're going to go back and forth. What would you like?
I think let's go back and forth. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm going to pick maybe the most similar one, The Beekeeper's Apprentice, which is the first in the series, so you need no background at all. And I think it's got things in common. So we're going to start from chapter 1 again. Again, I'm also going to skip the quotation at the beginning. And I am going to read the beginning because the beginning is what I really like, and it has very similar things to Catabasis. I was 15 when I first met Sherlock Holmes. 15 years old, with my nose in a book as I walked the Sussex Downs and nearly stepped on him. In my defence, I must say it was an engrossing book, and it was very rare to come across another person in that particular part of the world in that war year of 1915. In my 7 weeks of peripatetic reading among the sheep, which tended to move out of my way, and the gorse bushes, to which I had painfully developed an instinctive awareness, I had never before stepped on a person. It was a cool sunny day in early April, and the book was by Virgil. I had set out at dawn from the silent farmhouse, chosen a different direction from my usual, in this case southeasterly towards the sea, and had spent the intervening hours wrestling with Latin verbs, climbing unconsciously over stone walls and unthinkingly circling hedgerows, and would probably not have noticed the sea until I stepped off one of the chalk cliffs into it. Just love it. And it continues like that for quite a bit. There's a whole other much longer paragraph where she's talking about walking, and then she stumbles over Sherlock Holmes. But yeah, interesting having heard those two back to back, how similar they are in many ways.
Yeah. And you're right, they're so specifically time and place, and I hadn't really thought about that, which is, I think this is a fantastic intro, and I don't tend to read these sorts of books, so it's like a nice change. So please tell me what you love.
Yeah, it's a very good series, and it does a lot of going to different places, and you see the main character grow up a lot over several years. So here she is 15, and I think we see her all the way through her 20s. And in fact, she's an academic in Oxford for a large part of the series as well. I like the same things I like about Catabasis, and we didn't pick these books together at all. We picked books separately and then shared them with each other. So we had the sort of phrase like, in my defence, I must say it was an engrossing book. Which I like the sort of slight voice of talking to the reader, like, because who's she defending herself against? And the way in which there's a lot of specific details. She's 15 on the Sussex Downs. It's the war. It's 1915. She's been there 7 weeks. It's April. It never feels overloading at all, because every piece of it is related to a thing that's happening. So we don't just learn that she's 15. She's 15 when she met Sherlock Holmes, and she wasn't just reading the book. We learn a lot of details about the book that kind of relate to what she's doing. She's thinking about Latin verbs. That's why she's directing enough to walk on him. So, yeah, I really liked how she's managed to put a lot of specificity in that makes us really believe that she's met Sherlock Holmes. I think it's another one where we're mixing reality and fantasy, right? Because I know we're in fiction, but like we're in fiction meant to believe it's real. And she's a person who's met Sherlock Holmes. And so that level of specificity makes it very believable, because she's telling us so much that's true. We never even question that she met Sherlock. And we also get a bit of her attitude, that she is obsessed with reading, and readers love people who are obsessed with reading. So instantly it's like a save the cat moment. We love her. She's got a very particular writing style. So in the beginning we get this sentence, that's I was 15 when I first met Sherlock Holmes, comma, 15 years old, my nose in a book as I worked. It's quite a long sentence, but it sets a certain pace. And then she also puts words in brackets about the sheep and the gorse bushes, and lots of long sentences are very descriptive and put us right there. So I really love the way in which voice here is not like voicey annoying in your ear. It's like word choice and character. The character feels real without it sounding too annoying, obstructive. Yeah, so I love that about it.
Yeah, and I think that this is very much like on the page, not really something you would get just from reading it, but the little asides that are contained within the brackets is like a little aside just to the reader. It feels like, it does feel like you're very close and she is talking directly to you, like telling you a little story. It's so this is like what I read this, and as somebody who doesn't tend to read these sorts of books, I thought I could continue reading this because it is so, like, the pace is so nice and it flows. It just flows really nicely, and I'm instantly there. Like the descriptions, even just like silly things like reading amongst the sheep. As somebody who imagines books, I just pictured it immediately, and it's all very like just whisks you away into something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that this is, again, it is quite similar to Catabasis, and also a little bit similar to what I'll be talking about in Addie LaRue as well. Is these kind of longer run-on sentences that just like make it impossible to stop reading. You just kind of want to go with the flow. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so that is what I want to pick out of that, I think, because sort of nothing happens, right? I said absolutely nothing happens. We know what happened from the first sentence. She walks in Sherlock Holmes, and then also just describe how that happened. And like I said, it's another whole paragraph after this. So in fact, probably 200, 300 words that just do nothing but set the scene of like, this is how we walked on Sherlock Holmes, and still make it seem gripping and engaging. So yeah, I really like the sort of the way in which just sentence structure and word choice is creating quite a voice.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's interesting, I think, how similar they are.
Yeah.
Two books.
I also like the I was 15 part, which I know is stupid. It's like a nice little, a 15-year-old stumbling to Sherlock Holmes. I can immediately imagine, even though like we haven't got to that part yet, a child is running into a man, like, and she's just like this kid with her nose in a book. Already you get a sense, like, that is such a good sense of character. It's just like this kid wandering around a field, reading. Like, okay, I know who you are. Okay, I'm going from actual books, so I have to have to flip the pages. So the next book I picked is the Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. And when I first read this, it was already pretty big, and I think because it was a big release when it came out, and I didn't read it when it first came out. I had it on my shelf, and it was one of those ones where I kept looking at it thinking, oh, I can't wait to read it. And then it took me ages to read it. And when I finally got to read it, I'd missed all the hype. And I was so sad about it because I was like, oh, I could have really gotten into all the conversation around it and all the fun stuff, but I missed it. And that's my whole life is always just a little bit too behind. I'm always like, oh, I'll get round to it. And then I'm too late.
I feel like I missed it and had no interest in it, and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna read that book when I want to. Like it's on my TBR still. I really want to read it, but I don't feel like I'll gain anything by being in communication with other people about it.
Oh, I feel like I could have recommended this to everybody who wanted to read it, and I lent it out to people and had a little fun reading party with friends. I think that would have been really cool, because it was me and some of my friends do share books, so. Yeah, I'm sad I missed out on that, but I will read the first page or so. So, New York City, March 10th, 2014. The girl wakes up in someone else's bed. She lies there, perfectly still, tries to hold time like a breath in her chest, as if she can keep the clock from ticking forward, keep the boy beside her from waking, keep the memory of their night alive through sheer force of will. She knows, of course, that she can't. Knows that he'll forget, they always do. It isn't his fault, it is never their faults. The boy is still asleep, and she watches the slow rise and fall of his shoulders, the place where his dark hair curls against the nape of his neck, the scar along his ribs. Details long memorized. His name is Toby. Last night she told him hers was Jess. She lied, but only because she can't say her real name. One of the vicious little details tucked into the nettles in the grass, hidden barbs designed to sting. What is a person if not the marks they leave behind? She has learned to step between the thorny weeds, but there are some cuts that cannot be avoided. A memory, a photograph, a name. Could go on. I feel like there's I could just read the whole book again.
Yeah.
I love the intrigue of the immediate start of this book, and there is something before that, and you do get a sense of more of the world if you read the little prologue for this, but I like just going into this from this part because it seems so normal, but there are hints of something not normal about it, and I think that's what I like. It kind of unfurls this whole thing about who she is and everything that's happened to her in her life. And I think that the sentences are just, it's so simple, and that it's not like in Catabasis where the terminology is academic or anything. It's just simple descriptions of waking up and I don't know. I'm so bad at describing things that I'm terrible at critiquing, which is why I really need to practice this. But it's just, I feel like it just adds these little details of she told him her name was something else. She lied because she can't say her real name, and that just seems like a throwaway thing. Maybe she just lies to everybody, but the rest of it about being things hidden between thorny weeds and cuts that can't be avoided. I just think it's just such beautiful writing, and it just immediately just makes me want to continue reading. I think this whole book has sentences that just kind of draw you in, and it's not difficult reading to read. I do sometimes find, as somebody who struggles with reading sometimes, and probably because of dyslexic stuff, but this book is definitely one of the books that I read where I didn't struggle at all. And it's not that the writing is simple, it's just that it's just normal words. And I know that's a stupid thing to say, but it's beautiful descriptions, and it's not too flowery, it's not trying to be too smart, it's just I don't know, just an easy read, and then all the information gets dripped through to you. I just love this book.
Yeah.
Terrible critiquing.
I think what's so interesting was I feel like every teenager has probably written a version of this, right? There's a version of I woke up and I didn't know where I was. I couldn't remember my name. I had this mysterious secret. Oh, there's some dark mystery about me. I'm so mysterious. You'll never know. And at no point does this feel like this, right? Like even on the word level, it doesn't feel like that. And like we get drip fed a lot of information quite quickly, even past this page. Like we get a lot of regular info that stops us thinking like she's just going to have this weird mystery that we never find out more about, which is like that's every teenage thing that I wrote was like, oh, there's some mystery. No, none of us know, not even me.
Even I don't know what it is.
Yeah. So we're drip fed enough information to feel confident that like the author does know it's going somewhere. But also what's interesting is like even on the word by word level, we never get that feeling of like vague, mysterious teenage writing.
Yes.
And I think some of that is like, or my favorite part of that is the slightly unusual, interesting like similes that she has. So like she tries to hold time like a breath in her chest, and one of the vicious little details touch like nettles in the grass. I think those sort of phrases, they make us know the writer is a good writer.
Yes.
So we don't worry that they're just meandering. We know that every word is chosen. And also there's a fair bit of like light repetition that almost has like a sort of deliberate poetic echoing. So again, it feels more deliberate than just like, so mysterious, vague things happening.
Yes.
And yeah, even though there's almost no specificity in that, like we don't know what's happening at all, there is as much specificity as we can have, and specificity is done very deliberately. Like his name is Toby is a whole paragraph to itself, so that we know I've given you a piece of information. His name is Toby, and yeah, she lied. But that is a true fact. So we get enough true facts in here that we know there's not a vagueness for no reason, and there's enough like artistic control of the writing for it to not feel like rambly. But even given all that, like it still I think feels better than it should. I hate a vague opening. I hate a vague like, oh, nobody knows who she is. Something's happening. I despise it. It makes me want to put it down because it's always the writing is so bad. And in this, I absolutely don't feel that way at all. I do think the top of the page, New York City, March 10th, 2014, does a bit to help. I think anytime we can be specific helps. But there is, like you said, like there's a real economy of language. Yeah. There's no point at which the writer is like being teenage flowery writing to make their writing sound better than it really is. Like everything here is just as simple as it can be. Like absolutely as simple as it can be to tell you everything that's true. Even the sentences that are vague and just like mysterious. She knows, of course, that she can't. Knows that he'll forget. They always do. That's the sort of thing. Like in a weaker page, I'd have been like, no, I didn't. Tell me why I would go away. But there was just nothing in here that was weak enough for me to ever feel like, oh, that stomach churny teenage feeling.
Yeah, I think you lovely. Can. If this book had come out maybe like 5 years before it had, and I can't remember when this was published, 2000. Probably not going to say it on the page. Here we go. 2020. I think if this book had come out, maybe 10 years beforehand, this would have been a YA book.
Yeah.
And this would have been a YA book that did do all of that really tropey, I'm a mysterious girl. And I think like it benefits from the fact that that she didn't go like, I'm going to write a young character. It's so like it has such a mood to it that is kind of bittersweet already. It isn't his fault. It's never their faults. Feels like so. It could be really like emo, I say it, but it feels more like a complex emotion. Like there's something there that needs unpicking. Like there's something like a deep wound just from the first couple of paragraphs. It's like, she's like something's wrong.
Yeah. Oh, I had a thought as well about this. I was going to say, but I can't remember what it is. Maybe it's gone. It has gone, but it'll come back.
Okay. Well, whilst you're trying to think,
yeah.
The rest of the book I think continues to have those little bits that are the little repetitions, and just some really beautiful like poetic bits about, like, I think I found one earlier and I'll never be able to find it now, but it was something to do with like, here's one of them: the memory clings like spider silk, is like, that's a bit further in the page, and there's all sorts of lines like that where it's just such delicate references, and I think that you're particularly good at that kind of writing. So I know in the sample that we'll go over from what you've written, you also have those sorts of things. And I love that kind of writing where it's like the similes are so like soft, like of really delicate things, rather than, I don't even know like what you could say instead of that, or instead of saying something like thorny weeds. Like thorny weeds is, like you say, it's like that's like, it's redundant. Like weeds or thorns, like you know, thorny weeds just seems like it's a bit too much. But you could have said, like, well, she could have put just a step between the thorns, or step between the weeds, and it would have been like a shorter sentence. But it's like that extra little bit that just seems to make it flow.
There. I did what I was going to say. In fact, that is part of it. Is like, compared to the other samples we've looked at so far, like, this has got far less of a voice to it. Like, I really don't know the character from this, but that feels intentional. That feels like this person is so transient. Like, she doesn't have an opinion about Toby. She's not like, oh, I regret, you know, he wasn't as good as he thought he was. He's not as nice I thought he would be. Like, there's no sense of reflection on anything except for this like emptiness, which I think is interesting, and always makes me feel annoyed, right? In other books, like, I always feel like, who are you? And I feel like I do this myself, of just like have this very vague non-character. But I think in this, it gives us a real distance from her that feels intentional, because we don't know her name, the girl, she, the boy, even. And interestingly, we don't learn the boy's name, even though she knows it and we hear it. It's called Toby, and we learn his name before hers. So yeah, there's a lot of deliberate distance, and I think this is a good example of that, and how just having to give out very regular facts is a way to kind of maintain that closeness and that certainty, even in a sort of vague mystery section. So yeah, I really like this. I do really want to read it, but it's such a big book, I cannot commit to it right now. I want to read like on a holiday, just all the way through.
Yes, for anybody watching,
it's chunky.
I think we talked about this, or maybe it was the Catabasis we were talking about, which are both probably similar in length, about 550 pages or something, which to me is just a normal book, but I know I take for granted that I read big books.
Yeah, all the books I brought in are like under 400, but witties, like maybe 200 to 400 pages.
I like a chunky book. Especially like actual physical books. That's my problem.
I am very conscious that time is running on. And I feel like we could choose now to either say we are going to do 3 books each and then put back our own critique for next week, or we just do 2 books each and we do a critique of our own book now. Any preference?
I think let's look at our stuff.
Okay.
I don't think I can have that whole like lingering over my head for the rest of the week.
Okay, I am going to very quickly then just talk about Guards.
Yes.
Okay. Because this is quite a different sort of book. This is by Terry Pratchett, and I don't know why I can't open it on my Kindle. Here we go. And in fact, the reason why I wanted to bring this one up is because it's something that I want to do. I sort of had forgotten that I really love, and all the books I was looking at, I love do this, and they do a real like scene setting first. And Terry Pratchett does it really, really well. So the one book that I wanted to bring that I didn't bring was Perdido Street Station by China Miéville. And I loved that book when I read it. And it's part of a sort of little series of books. They're connected books, we have to read them all. I'm just going to make a note to put a link to that in. And I looked at that, and then I was like, oh, it's literally just setting for ages. I was like, yeah, of course it is. It's called Perdido Street Station, like it's about a place. And then I looked at other China Miéville books, and they're all the same. And in a really good way, they set the scene, but they're quite slow to start. to give us anything to talk about. But it really made me realize, like, oh, I really love that level of kind of authorial control you get, that feeling of like comfort and safety you get from having a scene setting paragraph at the beginning. And then so I thought I'd pick Terry Pratchett book because he is very good. He often has like multiple openings, and he'll do just like little scenes from several parts of the story he's going to come back to later, or he might do like a whole chapter with someone who's actually not a very main perspective. They might come in for a few chapters in the book, but we feel instantly with them. And he does that by changing the writing style quite considerably between the different sections to put us right in that kind of world with them. So I'm looking at Guards, and in fact it's got 1, 2, 3. Yeah, it's got like 3 little openings. This is within chapter 1. So 3 sort of different styles. And I'm just going to read a little bit from each and just like just have a bit of reflection on like, oh, I'm missing out on this sort of lyricism and this opportunity to make the world by just doing a little bit of scene setting. So the first bit, and I'm just going to read the beginning of it. This is where the dragons went. They lie not dead, not asleep, not waiting, because waiting implies expectation. Possibly the word we're looking for here is dormant. And then we get a description of all the dragons. And then, so that's like half a page. Then further down there, in another space entirely, it was early morning in Ankh-Morpork, oldest and greatest and grubbiest of cities. A thin drizzle dripped from the grey sky and punctured the river mist that coiled among the streets. Rats of various species went about their nocturnal occasions. Under night's damp cloak, assassins assassinated, thieved, hussies hustled, and so on. Gorgeous. And then, another start. Damp darkness shrouded the venerable buildings of Unseen University, Premier College of Wizardry. The only light was a faint octarine flicker from the light windows of that new high-energy magic building, where keen-edged minds were probing the very fabric of the universe, whether it liked it or not. Like, those 3 all have such a different tone. And I know this sounds weird, but one poem I like constantly think about was a poem that we had to memorize when I was in primary school, and every group had to memorize a different stanza, and it was called Cargoes by John Masefield, and in that it's about 3 different types of ships, and the word choices make a certain rhythm that reflects the ship that is in that stanza, and it gives you a feeling of the ship in that stanza, and I love that. And I think Terry Pratchett books, I think whenever people think about him, your first thought was about the fun and the like silly characters and the absolute joy of reading his books, but he has does such a good job of choosing sentence structures and picking words that set a scene. Even if you can't remember, like I read this really quickly, maybe you can't remember anything about what it's actually describing, but like you got a sense from those sentences of like, here's somewhere dreamy, here's somewhere dark and tense, here's somewhere, mystical. So yeah, absolutely love that about it. And I realize like I'm not letting myself do that enough.
Yeah,
because I think it
very
requires a lot of like
playful.
authorial control.
Yes, it is authorial control, and it's like it's a master of craft, really. And because I've never read any Terry Pratchett, I know like
What you've been doing in life,
yeah, send the police. And I obviously know of, and I've like come across things in passing, but I've never read anything of his. And yet, I think that if I'd have read the start of this book, I probably would have been able to guess that it was a Terry Pratchett book. And tell me how. I don't know. And I think it is just because I know from passing that he has that kind of like old wizened man telling a story, like at the start of Princess Bride, where the granddad is telling the story, 80s reference. Yeah, of course. A hunk in my household. He is on TV all the time. I have a major crush. I'm like, put Columbo on all the time. I love him. And and it's just like that kind of like old man way of telling a story. And that's kind of how I picture it, like an old man telling these stories and doing the voices and being really like theatrical with the way that the story is being told. And it feels like a real theatrical way to tell a story. And I really like that. And I think it's a very, like you say, like those snippets are so specific and yet it's not like somebody different has written them. They're not like really different, but it's just a slight change in the language that's used, or even just the grammar that's used is just enough to change it. Like the dragon part, there's like some ellipses, and then you go into a different line to finish the sentence. It's just drawing out this very sleepy, like hushed, like there are dragons here. Let's not make any sudden noises. And I think that is like, it's so nice, and it feels like, I don't know, I'm assuming that they're not children's books, but it has like an adult children's book vibe.
It's interesting. They're definitely often billed as middle grade, but like this one
Yeah.
very specifically is absolutely like you wouldn't give it to a kid. I think a lot of people read it when they're younger. Like I read it when I was a teenager, but the language and kind of the slight coarseness, I think you probably wouldn't give it to a kid, but before I'm reading them.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's what it feels like. It feels like it's like a children's book for adults, and I like that a lot.
Yeah.
Very descriptive, very, just like magical and fun. Like,
yeah,
I don't know any of these places, but I'm instantly like, I want to read more about them, and I think that is it. It's just like just these short paragraphs are enough to like pull you into the world, and that's such. Like I feel like it takes me forever to develop a world. And in all of our examples, you're just immediately there. And this is a big, like, I'm like epiphanying lots up here. I'm like, oh, yeah. So
and I think they're all quite heavy-handed with it in a way that you wouldn't necessarily be in your own work.
Yeah,
because like, it's April, it's 1915.
Yeah, they're like, it's like, and I guess that's the benefit maybe of having like a traditional editor and stuff, where they're like, be more specific, and you kind of force into it, whereas we have to force ourselves, and that's not always easy. It's nice to see like the real specificity, that's the word, of like the setting of the stage. It really does feel like a lesson.
Yeah.
This is what the episode's about.
Yeah, I think it is, because I think it's we're both, we've both brought along like the beginnings of something you're working on, and I think both the action of like choosing the books we wanted to talk about and also choosing what stood out to us in them is probably reflective of what we're thinking about in our own writing.
Yes, 100%. Yeah. So
we won't get onto our third books, but I will put in the show notes if anyone wants to look at them. They were kind of books that had similar lessons for us in terms of writing style and elements we were interested in. So we'll put those in for anyone to look at. But we'll go on to our own writing. Do you want to critique first, or have me talk about your work first?
Well, I think that you can critique me first. I'm ready.
Okay. Hang on, my file's opening. So the thing that really, reading this back to back with like the other books that you looked at, was like, I really wanted a lot more specificity. So the extract that Sam's shared, and we won't share this anywhere. This is just like open bits of our work, and kind of quite first drafty things. But the extract that you shared, like the questions I had were really about specificity of just like, it mentions that a character has got like dyed hair, and it talks about after years of maintaining his look as a rock and roll star of the 80s. And I was like, there's also TV show mentions that are present day, so this person can't be from the 80s, and they're meant to be young. And I was just asking myself so many questions at that reference. Like, I'm sure he's meant to just look like he's from the 80s, but the way it's described make me think he is from the 80s. And so I really struggled to figure out like, where and when are we? And there are places where you can be really much more heavy-handed with like the setting. So right at the beginning, she gets hit by a bike drive into her, but it's so swift. So we have the bike. In fact, I'll read the first sentence. That's okay. Isolde wasn't sure what happened first. The bike slamming into her hip, sending her to the ground hard with a vision that pierced her brain. That's the last we hear of the bike hitting her for ages. And then by the time you mention it again, I'd forgotten the bike hit her. But if we think about the examples that we just read, they would have been like incredibly lingering on the bike hitting someone. A stunning metaphor about that. Like, describe the bike, describe how it hits her. Because I thought the bike slamming into her hip, in fact, it's not even clear the bike hits her. I thought it's her own bike. She's got injured on her own bike. And a lot of in fact, I would say the only real question I had when I was reading this, or the only real thing I like feedback I had was like, I'm often asking myself questions to just clarify what's happening. And so just like give me way more specificity. And that's what was missing, because like the characters, I really felt like I knew them. And I only read, I think you said like 1,800 words. Really felt like I knew them. They had such attitudes about a lot of things, and they had such specific things they did and the way they did them. So like everything about them just like moving through the world felt very real. But I struggled to, because I'm not making a picture in my head,
Yeah.
right? I'm not in the picture in your head. I struggled to see what was happening.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the Addie LaRue extract was a good example to like go back and look at your language choices for a similar reason. So we had like the third paragraph, we've met two people already, and then it says the aforementioned best friend appeared in the doorway. Like that is, I had to think like, who's the best friend that we mentioned before? That word choice is like, it's more complex than it needs to be. And then we had someone's holding a mug and a joint, and then they dunk one into the other. Like, why am I having to guess which one they dunk into the other?
I know. I remember like when I sent it to you, I was like, I read that line, I was like, yeah. Oh, and this is a first draft, so like I'm not
super first drafty. Yeah,
I'm not precious about this. I wrote it once. I haven't reread it. I was just like, this is just something that I'm playing with. And I remember rereading that and being like, yeah, that's one or the other. Really, is all that it needs to be holding on to. Just put the coffee mug down.
Yeah, and we could even just be like so much more specific in everything, and it wouldn't feel too much. Yeah, I was going to say something about the beginning. Yeah, like you have the word vision used twice in the first paragraph to mean two different things, like literal vision and magical vision. And like think about that Addie LaRue where she's talking about things that we've got no idea what she's talking about the whole time, and yet we know what she's talking about the whole time.
Yeah.
And like I think what I really liked about this is like the sort of thing that is working against you in that is that it moves so quickly. This moves really quickly in a way that I think reflects the character. So it does feel then hard to think, oh, really slow down and linger over things to show us the specificity. But you could take loads of details out, right? You could take out like the joint as well as the coffee cup. There's like a mysterious door. Like, do we need that now? We get quite a lot of talk about the mysterious door now. Could we just have like one little hint? Like we would get in the other books that we looked at, like we would get in Catabasis, right? We'd be like, she mentions hell, and then, or she mentions a magical spell, then goes on something else. So I think you want to keep that like phenomenal paciness. You want to keep enough that we know who these characters are, and often what's helping me is Isolde's like judgment of Tiger and their attitudes to each other. They have got a lot of attitude. That makes them feel really specific and very knowable and like likable. I don't necessarily want to be friends with Isolde, but I want to read more about her in a good way.
Okay, that's
yeah,
good.
It's interesting to see how much you could take out and still keep that compared to the extras we looked at.
Yes, and I think like after talking about the books that we just talked about, what I was practicing with this particular story that I'm working on, which is just like a side story that I'm writing in my writing group just to play with stuff, was can I just like start a story immediately, which is obviously like what these other books do. It's like you're just straight into a story, and I'm glad that like I'm happy that the characters are initially like you can tell who they are and they're dynamic, because they kind of just appeared to me as I was writing them. I've not really made any plans for this, but I also like I'm so hesitant to put in any specificity, and I feel like that is like one of my downfalls for even like books that I've already published and I've edited. I never mention time and place, and I think not place, but time in particular, years or dates and stuff. I always kind of shy away from that sort of thing, and I think it's because of my fear of time. And it like adds an extra layer of something that you have to keep track of. And that is something that I struggle with in real life anyway, and I always think like, oh, so I'll just make it kind of like a don't ever mention when this is or kind of like where this is. But
even if we don't know like year, like this would feel so much more specific. It was like 9/17 on the third Tuesday in February. Like I'm so in that. And also like that would tell me how Isolde thinks about time. Is like,
Yeah.
how is she perceiving it? Yeah. And she does come across as incredibly real, and like her tone is very consistent. But it is interesting to think like this. You could do a lot. You could do the same with a lot less in this
Yeah.
extract.
Thank you. I'll cry afterwards. No, I'm joking.
You can't cry. That I
No,
really like it.
I
It's
would
just
never
like,
cry.
yeah. I think it's just like I think I can easily see where you can apply things which you looked at into this and be like, oh yeah,
Yes.
everything is
Oh,
there.
yeah, 100%. Like the epiphanies I've had just from realizing like why I like these books and why I pick these books, and the things that I don't like from the book that we didn't talk about. I need to do that more. I need to look at books more before I start writing stuff, because I always have that thought in my head of, oh, you don't want to be too influenced by stuff. Don't want to accidentally steal somebody's whole vibe. But actually, you kind of need to get in the zone and like figure things out before you do stuff. So, yeah,
or even just before you go back and edit. Like I think it's fine to get a first draft out. Like Terry Pratchett very famously was like, really, it's like the first draft is just you telling a story to yourself. He in his will made people promise they would run over his laptop with a bulldozer so nobody could ever see any of his unfinished work, and they did it. Like it's bulldozed, because he was like, that's unfinished work is not the work I want to be known for. So in my head I assume his first drafts are terrible, and he takes a lot of work to get. I don't know if that's true, but
we'll pretend.
Yeah.
So we'll jump into yours, because I know this is going to be a long episode. We've been trying to keep episodes short, and we are doing the worst job. But
we've done some good ones recently, so
give
I
the
think
people what they want.
Yeah, a 3-hour podcast.
Yeah, let's do it. So I read yours. I've already read a draft of this, and you have changed it somewhat. Not like loads, but you've definitely tweaked the start and stuff. So I know that this isn't a first draft. I always gush about your work. I love your writing. And I always think, as the person between us who does envision things and like sees the whole thing play out, I do think like you're so good at just like introducing a world and like having things open up in front of you. It's kind of like walking into a town and like it's all hazy, then all of a sudden it's kind of like Pleasantville where like the color comes in. And I always feel like when you write, you always like reveal things in such a beautiful way. So when I read this, I was like very excited to read more. I would say like one thing that I think I always pick up on maybe in your writing, and this isn't me being mean, just something that this is the way that my brain works, is I never know what your characters really look like.
Me either.
And I know
I can't see anyone, so
and I think that's kind of like the bit that I picked up on, because I think like everything that you write is really good, and you have such lovely turns of phrases. And one of the things that I highlighted here was where you wrote her slim fingers were loosening like silk ribbons, which is a description of like hands so tired from carrying bags that they're just slowly unfurling. And like the humor that you managed to weave in is really, really good. But you show a lot of the kind of world that we're in. So there are dwarves, and you've mentioned a wood elf, and I think there was maybe like an ogre. So you've mentioned these creatures, but I don't know what the main character, I don't know what she is, whether she fits in or if she doesn't fit in, and like how she's viewed by the other people. And I think that that's potentially what I feel like is missing from this, is there doesn't appear to be a human in sight. Is she a human or is she not? Is she does she, because she is very standoffish. She walks into this tavern, which is, I love the tavern scene and the fire. I'm not going to give anything away, but there's like this tavern which feels so lively, and like she's kind of like sees it all and she's backing away because she's like, oh, I don't know about this. And I don't know whether she's just like, oh, I don't know about this because she's too tired to cope. But I know that she is super tired. She's like, I'll just go and lie in a hedge. Or is there more to it? Is she like, what is she?
Yeah.
And I think that's my big thing is like, what is she?
I think what's interesting is like there's like an issue that I'm still struggling with about like writing characters and making them kind of main characters, about making them present on the page, because she's someone who at the moment is like trying to really hide herself, and that always makes me like in the narration hide a character, because like that's reflecting their internal state. And it has been really interesting to read like the idea of LaRue, like she's sort of hiding herself, she can't help it, but like there's a sense in which the authorial like narrator has a separate perspective, and I think I'm missing that from this, and I don't really know why I haven't got more of that in. So I think what I might do, because I actually don't like this first chapter, like I really don't like it, and
really? Oh, you're too hard on yourself.
No, partly it's because I've read it a million times, so I really am trying to get a bit of distance from it, and I have rewritten the very beginning many times. I'm starting with someone arriving somewhere, which I actually think I don't love as a beginning. I think you have to really have a good reason to start with someone arriving somewhere, and I sort of do with her, but I think I'm missing it. So what I think I might play around with is like having a much more like distant narrator first couple of paragraphs, because I love that in books, and like all the books that I didn't send you were all like that. But they were too much like that to really talk about. But the Terry Pratchett one, I think, is a really good job of, or I think too much for my purposes, but like does a good job of kind of as a narrator telling you information without it feeling like just here's a info dump. And I think because I really like sort of descriptive, interesting writing, I think I could write a beginning that is a little bit more in the narrator's voice and telly, and just get a bit more out about her, because like it's not going to come out without her thinking about it, and like I do know when she thinks about it, which is later in like chapter 4 or something. But I would quite like to have like a really interesting opening that is gonna, I think at the moment it's like slowly unfurling, like you're saying, like the opening is slowly unfurling, and I want it to feel much more like I'm in from the beginning.
Yes, yeah, I see what you mean, because I do think and I like that it slowly unfurls, but all the things that we've just looked at really are just a slam, like the book's open and you jumped straight in. But it's nice, and I don't know, I don't think it's like against the genre. I think like that it's not. I have read some starts of like a cozy fantasy where like they do have a very like meandering start, not like super meandering, but just enough where it's like a little bit of a slower start in. So I don't think it's like that it doesn't suit the genre.
No,
but yeah, if you want to be more Terry Pratchett, then
I just feel like I'm not in love with the story quickly enough, as even the reader, right? Like I'm not pulled in, because it's a character who's trying to hide themselves. And so like either I need to figure out a way to give the character's narration more voice, which I have tried, and I feel like I'm not it doesn't feel natural for this character at the beginning, or I need to add a little bit more of like authorial narration in. So I want to try a bit to do that, and use the examples I looked at today as kind of inspiration. Yeah, and I think it was also very telling that like all the books that I looked at that I was thinking about to send to you had much more zoomed out openings. Yeah,
I think like whatever you do, I always think is good. But yeah, I think that it would really benefit the story just to maybe, because you do definitely. It's clear that the character is like not on the run per se or anything like that, but just that there's something going on. Like she's moving away from something and moving towards something else. And I know there's a mention that she has got a shaved head, and that's the part where I thought, that's weird. Like that's not what I imagined. And that is the part that triggered. And I think like if that came a little bit sooner, I think that would have maybe put me more into like a bit more curious about who she was and what she was doing, just having that small detail a little bit earlier, because I got to the end of the thing, I was like, oh, I'd read all this stuff and that's not who I pictured doing any of that stuff. not that, like a lot of, not she's doing a lot of stuff, but yeah, it's just like it was such a specific bit of description, and it felt like a rug pull.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that is helpful. Yeah, I think I've also sort of, I know I've worked in this opening chapter a few times because I wanted to kind of try and get the voice set, but like for the rest of the book, I've really kept it very open. Like I've just written the dialogue and like little bits of description, but I'm not trying to write the whole narration because I really wanted to get to know the characters and like what was required before I kind of went back and committed to a certain tone of voice or a certain detail about someone's past. So that felt quite a useful way to write. But I'm very conscious of the time before we get into much detail on that. So hopefully this has been helpful to listen to hear us go through the process of like analysing what we like about something and how we can learn from that and impact our own work with it. As I said, I'll be putting all the information about the books that we looked at or were to look at in the show notes, so you can have a look along with those, and anything else we mentioned in the podcast as well. Next week we are continuing craft, but like a little bit different. So we're looking at planning our books, so how we plan books and series, and then diving into the details of characters and character arcs and things like that. And also things like voice. So quite a range of things. Which part of planning do you usually start with?
I read this question before we started. It's like, oh, okay, mentally prepared for this. I start with the full idea. Helpfully, I like the full idea for a story comes to me at basically at once. It kind of, if as soon as I start to think about what the book could be, I am basically imagine start, middle, and end, and then I write down a very, very dirty synopsis of everything that has come into my brain, and then I just work off that document and develop it more. So that's my first thing is always crazy, long, insane synopsis. Yeah, the full concept. not like, and not that it would stay that way, but yeah, like a full idea will form and then it will develop from there. How about you?
Right. Absolutely opposite, yeah. I really just find like the main character in a situation and then trying to figure out from there like what's the kind of thematic question I'm asking myself about that. Or like thematically the character dealing with, and then build out other situations and characters that are related into that.
Oh, we're so
and that sounds
different.
a bit mechanical, but like, as in, I just sort of put that in my head and then wait for more information to come along in relation to that. But like, I try and make sure I'm pinning down a small central part and then building out from there. So yes, next week should be interesting, and we'll look forward to this conversation. We were short next week. This week has just been long because turns out talking about books is quite a long task. Who knew?
Yes.
Hope it's been useful and you've enjoyed listening to us. If you would like to continue this, please come join us in the Discord, the Pen to Paycheck Discord. The link is in the show notes. There is a free section that everyone is free to join. If you would like additional support and resources, there are paid levels that you could find information about in our coffee. And you can also just support us in the coffee if you just want to buy us a coffee and some cake. Thank you for this week's supporter who drop some money in there as well. Thank you for listening. I forgot to tell Sam about, so I'll tell about afterwards. Thank you for that.
Who was this?
I know, it's very exciting. Yes, but yeah, thank you to everyone who supports us as well. It helps cover the cost of the podcast and keeps going and helps us know that you're listening. Anything else? Nope. Come back next week, please. We will enjoy chatting to you then. It will be shorter, I promise. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
You've been listening to Pen to Paycheck Authors.
Stay tuned for our next episode, and don't forget to subscribe to learn how to write your way to financial success.